Graham, just while we wait for Joe to join in the call, can you just give us a bit of insight into what your role in the project was?
Okay, so I was the contractor, and we actually did all the steel ourselves on site. I have a welder that works for me, and we did all the fabrication on site, and there was quite a lot of steel work. So it was pretty much a glass and concrete structure. So all the supports were steel posts, and then there were these skylight roofs, which were steel structures, 3 of them. And then there was quite a substantial beam across the whole building because because of the for support. And then there was all the outside patios. You can see the entrance walkway and the outside patios, which were also very nicely, actually very well designed steel work. And another one item was we did a sliding remote controlled sliding cover for the pool. You can actually just see that in the foreground there. And that just works off a very big gate battery, and it's a steel thing, and it's fantastic. One of the things that I really liked, Joe's designs were very clever in the way that he did the steel work, so that all the joins and were quite hidden. So all those outside posts, which is the steel work that you really see, they were inside flanges, and you just saw a little dome nut on the outside. So the steelwork was very neat and easy to fabricate. The structural stuff was, of course, a little bit more complex, but all the real flanges and things were sort of buried underground or into the concrete above. So all you really saw was posts everywhere, but there was quite a lot of work involved with all different size flanges and base plates and all the rest of it. And the project, it's a beautiful building, and the steelwork obviously makes it very light. There's lots of windows, lots of glass, with the black aluminium between the black steel posts. What else could I?
What were some of the challenges that you had as far as the steelwork fabrication and erection goes, Graham? And how did you overcome those challenges? No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. Did you say you fabricated on site? Did
Yes.
you have shop? Did you have? Well, I hesitate to use the word shop, but did you have details of what you were?
Yes, we had details.
Conventional shop detailing.
Yes, the engineers produced very good details, flange plates and welds and everything, and we set up our little shop, a little scaffold. It was outside, but it was had a cover on, and one of the advantages of it is we could pre-make everything, fit it, and then send it off to galvanizing. So we had everything we knew, and it came back from galvanizing, and we had erected it, all fitted perfectly together. So that was how we did it there. One of the big challenges was there was the massive beam that runs across the lounge is a 197 kilogram per meter I-beam.
Wow.
And
okay.
we actually had to cut it in half to get it onto the site. We couldn't get that length because it was a 11 meter beam that we had to put up. So we had to order obviously a 13, cut off a bit. Then we had to cut it in half and get it up onto the roof and weld it. And the engineers then obviously provided a proper welding, bolting, a join on that. Yes, I see they were invited, but I don't think they're here. But we got a lot of very specific details from how to fabricate everything. Some of the other difficulties, I think that beam was particularly the hardest. Otherwise, it wasn't too difficult. It was, just the plans were there. And it was nice. We just did it as we went. We built as we required. Yeah, and it was pretty straightforward actually. Yeah.
So how would you say that this project demonstrates the benefit of steel as a material?
Well, the most I think it's the neatness of it. It's the fine to make a glass building. You don't want to have thick columns. Everything wanted to be thin, and so the support of a massive concrete roof was all done on the steel posts, and they fit in between. It was we were using 100 by 100 by 5 mil steel posts, and they fitted between the aluminium windows, the same color, and they kind of disappear into the building. So that the whole lounge sort of living area is just one glass sort of facade. So that was the big advantage. And then the outside, and then we used those same posts to tie in with the little canopies and walkways, and so everything everything matched and talked to each other, and gave this very neat little neat appearance of these just black posts everywhere. So that was the advantage. I don't think there was no choice really. There was no other way of producing a building like that. You have to use steel. It's the only way to get a light feel. Yeah, most of the roof structure was done with concrete beams. It's just that one particular steel beam we used. The reason we went for the steel is because of the length of that structural beam. If we had to do it in concrete, it would have been something like 1.5 meters high to allow for the strength, and then it would have stuck out on top of the building and been a terrible eyesore. So for the main beam across the big open area, to allow the sliding doors to open, against each other, to create a massive opening onto the patio, we had to use that big steel beam. But the biggest advantage was all the smaller beams, to make the whole building seem like a floating roof on glass, really.
Were there any issues in working with the consultants, meaning with the engineer? Any challenges?
No, they were very good. They were they provided me great details. Everything was properly detailed. There was a lot of details. That was probably the only problem, I suppose. But that's on complicated jobs. That's how it goes. You have to wade through all the details to find the exact detail for every joint that's required. But they knew their stuff with the steel. They knew what to do, I didn't really have any issues with it. We had quite a lot of toing and froing because the design of the entrance walkway wasn't completed when we started the job, and it was more an architectural engineering problem. The architect had wanted something light, but they wanted to have a one-sided post and a cantilevered roof, but it just ended up being too big in the steel sections. So eventually ended up with a sort of U-shape, upside down U-shape walkway, and then that worked really well because it matched the rest of the building, and it was quite light sections. We also had to, okay, it was a bit off the subject of your question, but we also had, there were bamboo ceilings in all the sort of loft areas or the skylight areas, which we had to use steel. We used angles, and the client didn't want to see any fixings from the bottom. So we had to actually install the ceiling from above through this with the steel angles supported off the steel purlins. Fix the ceiling first before we could clad and do the insulation and roof sheeting.
Good. John, any questions or comments from your side? You all good? I see we've got Joe on with us. Joe, we are recording, so if you're comfortable putting your video on, please do so. And then we can get into the architectural questions. Graham's been holding the fort. I'm sure he's tired of speaking now.
Graham knows more than I do.
So, Joe, can you tell us a little bit about the architectural brief for House O'Connor, and what was the inspiration?
Well, it's a site with incredible views of the back of Table Mountain. So one of the main briefs was obviously to make the best use of those views. So I'll chat to you a little bit later about how we achieved that. And then the client also wanted, it was quite a strange brief, they wanted a strangely shaped house. In the beginning, they indicated they wanted like a zigzag house or whatever. So we basically interpreted that and arranged the rooms on the other side of a courtyard and created what I call the forest link between the living wing and the bedroom wing. So that we did with steel with large sliding doors either side. I
just want to butt in quickly, Joe. I have enabled screen sharing. I did share some of the photos that were submitted as part of the submission earlier in the call, but if you would like to share anything just to illustrate your explanations, you're welcome to do so as well.
Thanks. Yeah, so do you want me to continue?
Yeah, go. Continue.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if, I think it's visible in some of the photographs that within the floor plan, in the center of the dining room, living room area, for example, we created what we call clear story windows. So there's a flat, majority of the roof is flat, but then in the middle of the roof, there's a mono pitch with glass on a steel structure. And that actually brings the mountain view into the house, and it also brings some northern sun into the house. So so that's had two reasons for doing that. And we also achieved quite a high ceiling height, almost 3 meters, 2,950, with full height glass, and that's all on most of it is on steel posts, corner posts, etc., with the windows in between.
You've kind of touched on what my second question to you is how did steel specifically as a material play a role in achieving the brief?
Yes, steel enables one to provide structural elements that don't obliterate the view. So with, I think we mostly downstairs, we used 120 by 120 square hollow sections. And for the mono pitch roofs above, I think we went down to 75 by 75 in places. So that's enabled us to bring the views in. That's the main thing that steel enables one to achieve. But also, if you think of steel within concrete, it also enables one to achieve bigger spans, etc. That's clear story section above the dining room was only made possible by incorporating a very deep I-beam, which actually sits within the concrete slab. So that enabled us to achieve that configuration. It wouldn't have been possible any other way. So yeah, those are just examples of the beauty of steel. Yeah.
Last question from my side, and then if the judges have got any other questions, they're welcome to chime in. I always ask this every year to all of our project team members: is what are you most proud of on this particular project?
The question for me. No.
Yeah.
I think what I really like the most about this project is those those elevated roofs, the monopitch roofs, like over the dining room, which if you're in the space, it's like almost a surprise element. It's in the middle of the floor space. So you enter under a flat roof, and then you suddenly realize that you can see the mountain if you way back in the kitchen. And then also the main entrance hall space, which also has strip windows between the top of the feature walls and the concrete roof over that space. Yeah, it's quite effective at night because we have strip lights up there. And again, the fact that we could put that concrete roof over the entrance hall scullery area on thin steel posts gives the impression that the roof is floating. Especially at night, you see the strip of light and protruding from the top. Yeah, so I think those are the main features of the house, and then the way the views are quite striking from all the living areas and the main bedroom, etc.
Good. Graham, what are you most proud of on this project?
So after just being proud of the project as a whole, the things I'm proud of are quite small little items. I'm proud of the fact that we managed to do the steel, particularly the walkway outside and the pergola, which was actually pretty much Joe's design, that we could get that steel work so neat, and it was just a design thing which I hadn't done before. That's probably the reason of having inside flanges and small little bolts. We put this thing together and it looked great. It was just, the corners were absolutely perfectly neat. Everything just worked great. And the other thing that I'm very proud of is my motorized pool cover deck, because as a builder, you don't often do things that move, especially something that weighs about 3 or 4 tons. And I'm very proud of it, and as was the client. Everyone who came to his house, he would take his remote out and show them the pool deck sliding forward and sliding closed again. It was a great little feature. He loved it, and we enjoyed building it. It was also one of those ones where we were a little nervous to see how well it would work when we finally pressed the button to see if it was all going to work perfectly, because a motor on only one side. We were worried that it would pull one way or the other, but it all worked 100%, and it looks beautiful as well. So I think those are 2 little items that I'm very proud of.
Good. Emmanuel, any final closing comments from your side or questions?
No, I'm just glad to see recognition of the use of steel for these long span, very lofty looking architectural features, and that there was such a good contractor who was able to utilize the steel appropriately in partnership with consultants. Well done.
Good. John, any closing comments or questions from you?
Joe, yes. Joe, do you have a picture? We've got four pictures of this project. You have a picture from the front. You know, the 4 pictures we've got are from ground level. I mentioned this earlier. It's a 2-story building. We have no idea of what it looks like from the front. You can't see the 2nd story from the photographs that we've got, apart from a hole in the ground.
Yeah, it's not really a double story. There is a lower ground floor. Because of the steep slope on the site, so the main bedroom bathroom sits on top of a flat below. I just want to see, I'm going to try and find some more photographs. Or I could probably send them to you.
Oh, you're welcome.
The photographs that we are seeing are looking south. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Let me quickly scroll down. Sorry if you've got a minute.
No,
No
that's fine.
problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like the photographer also focused on the main areas upstairs. But that flatlet is actually quite impressive.
Joe, what we've
Clearly,
also
you've got
done.
a clearly for sorry, Denise.
No,
Clearly,
go for it.
for that little flatlet, you've got a skylight. Let's call it a skylight because that's the hole I'm looking down through there. But are there no views out south?
Checking quickly. I think the reason we avoided that area, when we took the photographs, is because the member of staff living there. So I think.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't seem to have any photographs there.
Joe, what
Okay.
we've done with some of the other project teams is they've also just sent us kind of a walkthrough of the model, like a video format walkthrough. You know, when you're going through the detailing, just like a slow-paced, you know, walkthrough of the model that might be useful to have as well. If you could, you know, send something like that through, or if you've got any other supporting photographs or footage, because as John mentioned, what we've got with the submission is not that many photos. Also, Graham, from your side, if there's any photos of the fabrication and erection, that would be good to see.
Okay.
Okay. So
Guys,
you
building up the 11-meter beam would be fantastic.
Yes, I'm trying to think if I've got anything on that.
Always document your projects while they're busy being done.
I'm always so bad at getting photos while
No,
I'm busy working.
We all are.
Yeah, I'm also curious to see how that fits in the slab.
Yeah. Okay, great. So
we can certainly
additional...
send you a detail.
Yeah. Send
well, that'll help. Yeah, that'll help. That'll be great. Listen, you know, this is all for your. It's for your benefit because this stuff is all going to be published, and you know, if you come off looking like a bunch of stars, hopefully you're going to get a lot of orders. So yeah. Look at it as a marketing opportunity, guys.